Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for joining us on Spilling the Teach. We're looking forward to hearing about what's happening in the math world. So if you could start with who you are, what you do, and then tell us about the math world.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I am Kim Johnson. I'm the math department chair, but I also teach two classes. I teach Algebra 1 to mostly ninth graders, and one of those sections is co-taught with Yolanda Vasquez. Hi, Yolanda.
Awesome. Thank you. So how has this year been? What's been working for you in your classes?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting year as far as my own classes are concerned. Right, lots of challenges just because of the environment we're in. But we tried to take, in the math department, the approach that this year is an opportunity to try all sorts of cool things we never thought we could or would, because we have the time, we have the space, we have the fact that lots of things are kind of goofed up in the world of education. So we might as well give it a shot now. If and when we get back to normal, possibly in the fall, we get back to what we used to consider normal, high school, we might not feel as open to doing those things, but with a couple of good experiences under our belt, I think we can transform what we can do next year and in future years as well. So we tried to take that approach, as much PD as we could get, as much reading as we could get, sharing of ideas, just conversations, and helping people branch out.
Awesome. That's great. I know that's a really great perspective on this weird year we're having, and using it as an opportunity. So what in algebra, I know you shared with me a little bit about trying some self-paced math. Can you talk about that with us?
Sure. The thought of self-paced math classes has been going through my head for a couple of years. So I've done what I can, researching through my education sites, my Twitter's feed, all sorts of goodies I could find around in PD, talking to some colleagues around at other high schools. As the math chair, I get to meet with the math chairs at other high schools a lot. So good brainstorming there too. So I've been working on this a couple of years. A few colleagues in the math department here, we've been having this discussion. So I thought I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to do it this school year. Now, that was before we could figure out what was actually going to happen this school year, but I thought I'm going to go with it anyway. Just embrace that experimental time, trying to embrace making my classroom somewhat of an educational laboratory, I guess you could call it. So we got the year going. We knew we were full remote. Had to develop a few more ideas. There were a couple of sticking points in my head about how to run a self-paced classroom well through the computer. And so we had PD here at the school. I think it was October, November, when Chad from the grid method had come, and I joined in that session. It was one of our Institute days. I joined that session. And everything he had to say within the first, few minutes was right along the same line of thinking I had for my own classroom. And then in our talk, he was able to provide a couple of tools, the grid method template itself, and then this amazing spreadsheet for progress monitoring. And that really sealed it for me. Then I was able to really go for it. And so I'm on my third chapter of self-paced math. And as far as the why is pretty important as well. It's not just what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. And, it's going really well in some cases. And in some cases, it's not. We've had to adjust every chapter as we've tried this. We've had to adjust our thinking, make some modifications for particular students, for small groups of students. But overall, I've had a great experience with it. I think it's a super positive thing for most students. And this is why. Algebra 1 doesn't have any levels. There's no honors algebra 1. There's no basic algebra 1. This is algebra 1. There's a few students who have already moved past algebra 1 to geometry and AAT for us in the honors land. But for the most part, we get a huge group of freshmen taking algebra 1. And they are coming from so many different backgrounds, different middle schools, different teachers, different experience. Their prereq knowledge is all over the place. So the why behind this is that I give this mechanism to students to show me what they know quickly if they already know it and get to the stuff that they're ready for. But I also give them a mechanism to slow it down and get the deep teaching that they need around topics that are really important before they go on. It takes the pressure off of students. There's not a lot of pressure to meet particular deadlines. I have a couple in my head over the course of a semester that I talk to students about being a hard deadline. But most deadlines are flexible. So we reduce the pressure. In this remote setting and hybrid setting, we allow students to work when they can work. Sometimes that's during our 60-minute class period. Sometimes it's in the afternoon. Sometimes it's nighttime. We all know our students are liking to work at different times based on what they have going on at home. So the why piece is really important to me too. And it's I'm looking for that equitable educational environment where all students can thrive where they need to, at their own pace, where they need to be. And so far it's working great. And I'll tell you, my students who really love it, they love being excused from class when they are keeping on top of their game and they can monitor their own work. And they use email or Remind 101 to ask me for questions. They do love that. It's kind of like I was thinking about it the other day. It's a little bit like our blended model, right? And we're trying to teach students how to be independent learners and own their stuff. It's a little bit like that. I think I kind of take it to the next extreme, maybe, because the whole deal is that self-paced model. But so far, I really like it. I'm going to continue trying to work with it all semester, and then really hone my skill for next fall, and make it really impactful for students. So
Awesome.
that's it in a nutshell.
That's great. I love that you took the dive to try it this year, and it seems like it's working well. My kind of wonder, and I know that your answer to this, but I think I know your answer to this, but do you think this will work for our 90-minute blocks? How do you think that is?
Great question. Yes. So, yes. There's a couple tweaks I'm thinking about though. So when we come back to in person and we're in a 90-minute session, I think intuitively teachers know you're going to need to chunk that time for students. You're going to need to chunk the time. You're going to need to provide brain break time. You're going to need to provide time where students move. So I'm going with the same concept next year. And in person, I think there'll be some ways that it's so much easier because I just have that easy access with my students for the 90-minute time frame, or I can find them here in the building at all times. I think in a lot of ways, it's actually going to be easier. But I'm also working now, I'm developing this concept of what I think will be learning stations. And in general, like just in a nutshell, what that means is there's going to be different areas of my room that are meant for different types of learning. And you're going to do that for a little while. And then at some point, there's going to be a break where you have to either take the break and move, or it's a whole class break where we need to regroup in a whole group discussion. Or we split into two small groups, especially if this is a co-taught environment. Geez, you could do all sorts of things with two different teachers in the room. But this idea of learning stations, and kind of thinking back to what might be more like an elementary school model, maybe a middle school model too. I'm not quite sure if that's applicable, but that's what I see my little kids, my own two little kids doing at school. They have these stations, they have small groups that they're moving with, and they're trying new things at each station. Teachers usually centralize at a couple places where they're there to do the deep teaching, the reteaching, and the support. So that's the one twist I think we're going to have to make in the block. But yeah, I think it's going to be excellent for that too.
I do too. And with, I think, having the 90 minutes and you're breaking up the stations, I think that's going to be amazing. And I'm going to actually reach out to you to see how that's going next year too. Because I feel like that whole station rotation model could be a great tool and strategy for every subject area, kind of breaking it up, giving the kids some of that autonomy to work in those small groups here and there. I'm gonna really I look forward to that. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you our last question for Spilling the Teach. And the question is, coffee or tea? Tell us about your favorite cup.
You got it. It's coffee all the way for me. My absolute favorite is the pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks. I would
Ah,
love it with the full fat too. Give me the full cream, the whip, the topping, the whole deal. I don't usually get it that way because it's crazy drink. That's a crazy drink, but it is delicious.
perfect. So, when is your favorite? Like, tell me your favorite time to drink your pumpkin spice latte.
Well, when we drank coffee at work a little more frequently, I'd hit the Starbucks on the way to work. That one up on Route 83. You can even do like the phone ahead in your app, or not phone ahead, order ahead in your app.
Way to get
Zoom in, pick that sucker up, and run to work. So that's usually my favorite.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kim. Appreciate your time and looking forward to hearing more about self-paced math and where you take that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime. Glad to be here.